Welcome to our documentary about the apartheid in South Africa, made by Mathilde,
Sille,
Caroline, Pernille,
and Emilie. Apartheid in general means separation, and apartheid was made as a necessity to separate the different races. That means that the whites were the ones who should have the full power and lead the whole society. But the population were divided into 4 different groups. There were blacks, whites, colored, and Asians. And the meaning with the apartheid was for the whites to live without any contact with the colored, and therefore the colored had no political or economic influence. There were many rules under the apartheid, and an example could be that the different groups of the population had to live in different places, and the colored had to get permission to live in the city. Another rule was that the colored had to be separated at public places. An example could be the toilet.
Now I'm going to talk about the imposition of apartheid. The National Party got the power in South Africa in 1948. It was the National Party themselves who called the ideology apartheid. The ideology was to separate the white from the black people. That made the black people unable to vote at elections, so only white people could vote on white people. The white people were through many years before imposed by the way of thinking about apartheid. So in many ways was apartheid policy already a reality when the party won the election in 1948. Apartheid happened by entering a lot of laws that secured the power to the white and separation between the 4 groups, the white, the color, Asian and black. In 1994, there were over 15,000 orders and 200 laws about racial segregation. They were all the result of 4 principles: the division between racial groups, physical segregation of the racial groups, no right or freedom to the black people, and no opportunities for social mobility to the black people.
Nelson Mandela was a leading power in the fight against apartheid. He was a part of something called the NAC, and the NAC fought against racial segregation. They used a method called civil disobedience, which meant that they broke laws that they meant were unfair, which should get a reaction from the authorities. His participation in the fight against apartheid resulted in that he in 1962 was imprisoned, and in 1965 he was sentenced to a lifetime in prison. Before he was imprisoned in 1962, he was traveling around in Africa to gather support for the fight in South Africa. He was released from prison February 1990, and after his release he continued to fight for peace between the races and for apartheid to end.
Many people feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
He was released from prison February 1990, and after his release he continued to fight for peace between the races and for apartheid to end. After his release, he was also selected as vice president in the NAC, and in 1991 he was selected as president for the NAC. After that, they started negotiating with the government to end apartheid and get democracy.
Desmond Tutu also had a big influence on the apartheid. He was born in Klerksdorp in South Africa in 1931. He was a South African social rights activist, and he became the first black Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town in 1985.
Desmond Tutu had won several prizes throughout his life. He received a Nobel Prize in 1984, and he received the Award for Peace for his role in the opposition to apartheid in South Africa. He also received the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009 from the Mo Abraham Foundation for his commitment to speaking truth to power. He drew both national and international attention to injustice of apartheid. He made peaceful protests and marches in Johannesburg, and he was especially good known for this. The marches were meant to fight against apartheid and to free Nelson Mandela from prison. In the 1990s, Tutu named South Africa as the Rainbow Nation.
In South Africa, the apartheid system was ended through a lot of negotiations in the period of 1999 to 1993. William de Klerk had a big influence on ending the apartheid system in South Africa. Through many negotiations that William de Klerk took with the government and the National Party and the African National Congress and a wide variety of other political organizations, he was able to end the apartheid system in South Africa. In 1994, a new South African government of national unity was formed, with Nelson Mandela as the president and Frederick William de Klerk and Thabo Mbeki as deputy presidents. The election of Nelson Mandela as a president was a big factor of ending the apartheid in 1994.